This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Today is the National Day of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Gender-Diverse People. Hundreds of vigils, marches, and ceremonies are being held right across Canada, including here in Winnipeg at the Forks. CBC's Riley Lachuk joins us now live. Riley, what is happening there today?
Well, Janet, it has been a day of reflection and a day of emotion here at the Forks for this day. Ceremonies began here early this morning with a sunrise ceremony. A sacred fire was lit to remember those who have been lost and those that remain missing here in our province. Now, I want to show you around a little bit. Things have been progressing and things have been ongoing here throughout the day today. So we have these posters here. 231 of these posters around the grounds here at the Forks. These are the 231 calls to action from the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls. These 231 calls are a big pillar of what is going on here at the Forks today. Now, we also have these purple butterflies. Each of these purple butterflies has a name on it here, and these represent people that have been killed or people that remain missing. Their loved ones have been putting more and more of these up through the day. People have been stopping to read them and really just take in what is going on here today. Now, as I mentioned, we have had events happening throughout the day here at the Forks today. A sacred fire was lit at Odena Circle not long ago, a little ways away from me here. We have a feast getting underway as well. People are continuing to gather. Now, coming up a bit later in the show, we will hear from one of the organizers of this event to talk about what it means to her and what she wants Manitobans to know about this day. So we'll have that coming up a bit later in the show. Janet?
Thank you very much. That's CBC's Riley Lachuk reporting live tonight from the Forks. As Riley showed you, today is a day of action and awareness. It's also a day where family members hope they'll get the answers they've been looking for. CBC's Peggy Lamb reports.
Hi, we can put it over here.
Donna Bartlett is covering as much ground as she can. Her granddaughter, Mercedes Myron, went missing in March, and her family hasn't heard from her since.
Move it over this way a little bit more.
On this day dedicated to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, she wants people to help her find Myron.
Just hopefully everybody looks for her, finds her. Anybody has information to phone the police and let them know.
Bartlett says prior to going missing, Myron was living on the streets, and now she's worried that her granddaughter is being exploited.
People abusing her, using her for sex trade, dying, something, getting hurt. I don't know. Right now I'm worried because we haven't heard from her. It's scary. We just want to find her alive.
There's Jan in the back, and there's Mariah when she was a baby.
Charlene Williams has a different ask. She and her family want justice for her daughter, Jana Williams.
She was my shadow. She was always beside me, always did stuff together, and she would give you her last dollar, anything. She'd help. She'd leave the house, go take off for a week or a month or 2 months just to go help her friends and make sure they're fed. And she loved everyone.
Jana's body was found near the Red River in Winnipeg in March last year. Her death declared a homicide, but Charlene says she hasn't heard from police since May 2021.
I'm mad about it. It's like they don't even care about what's going on with our people, our women and children, and they're not doing nothing. They're just brushing it aside, and that's it.
No arrests have been made for Jana's case, but police say that they're still investigating.
I made it to my destination. This is where my daughter's been found.
Last week, Charlene walked 140 kilometers from Eriksdale to Winnipeg. She wants to raise awareness about her daughter's murder and raise the 2 children that she left behind. Peggy Lamb, CBC News, Winnipeg.
This afternoon, protesters at an encampment on the grounds of the Manitoba legislature were evicted. The CBC's Ian Fraze joins us now live from the newsroom. Ian, what happened to the camp on the north side of the legislative building?
Janet, they were given the boot. You may have seen this camp, 2 TPs in front of the legislature. They've been there for months. Yesterday, police actually stopped them from trying to build a 3rd TP, but today their camp got dismantled. Several people were arrested and their equipment was hauled out. Justice Minister Calvin Gertson says police are responding to escalating violence.
We want this to be a place where people feel safe to visit, feel safe to come and have meetings, feel safe to work, and feel safe to protest, because this is an appropriate place to protest. But there are safety concerns when people come and don't leave and make it a permanent place. And those were demonstrated over the last number of weeks.
This camp was run by anti-government protesters. Its members have opposed a range of issues over time, from what happened at residential schools to COVID-19 restrictions.
Now, Ian, speaking of protests, a Tory MLA is trying to stop demonstrations from happening in front of hospitals and also in front of schools. How would that work?
That's right. Well, PC MLA Shannon Martin put forward this bill. It's designed to stop things like protests in front of hospitals and schools. We saw this last year in front of the Health Sciences Center, where traffic was slowed and some people were confronted over vaccine mandates. This new bill will create areas around hospitals and schools where people cannot be restricted from entering. Here's Shannon Martin.
We need to ensure as a government that any individual accessing legal services or providing legal services, medical services, whatever they are protected from harassment or dissuadement and that. So, I mean, you are welcome to make your opinion known, but it has to be done in obviously a respectful way.
Martin says he's confident the government will support his bill. In other political news today, the provincial government confirmed that businessman and former Hydro board chair Sandy Riley is offering free advice to the province about Hydro. Riley had a public falling out with the Tories back in 2018 when he and virtually the entire board quit. At the time, he was saying he was frustrated he couldn't meet with then Premier Brian Pallister to discuss policy issues. Janet.
Thank you, Ian. The CBC's Ian Fraze reporting live from the newsroom. Family of a 33-year-old man who died in August remember him as a kind, humble man. Police found CJ Mowat in medical distress outside of a McDonald's on Main Street in Winnipeg. He later died in hospital. Now, at first, police didn't know who he was. They put out 2 calls for help identifying him. The second one included a surveillance camera image of him. He was identified soon after. His sister, Sarah Mowat, suspects opioids might have been a factor in her brother's death. She says her brother was struggling with addiction and homelessness.
I just want to emphasize that my brother was loved. He was cared for. He had family and friends that loved him. He was a good guy. He was never involved in any criminal activity. He was just lost.
Mowat says her brother tried more than once to get help for his addictions, but he faced barriers accessing supports. No cause of death has been released. RCMP say a young woman found in the Paw 3 years ago was a victim of homicide. Candera Ballantyne would have turned 22 years old today. She went missing in July 2019. A few days later, her body was found near the University College of the North in the Paw. Investigators have now determined she was killed. Her family asks that anyone with information come forward. They say they need closure. Housing, transit, and safety. Anti-poverty advocates say those are the issues that should be front and center in Winnipeg's civic election campaign. CBC's Cameron McLean spoke with some of those advocates about what they want to hear from candidates.
Mary Burton says programs for Winnipeg's youth are her biggest concern.
We all try to make sure our youth are healthy and safe and happy. And in order to do that, we need to be able to say that we can do it. If we don't have the funding, we can't do it.
Burton works with families that are involved with child and family services. She says the biggest issue they face is the lack of housing.
The city needs to work with the other levels of government to create more housing, more bigger units, more 4 and 5 bedroom units for families, larger families that need to be reunified.
For Reuben Garang, the issues of housing and safety are inextricably linked.
Who are the most vulnerable people? Are the people on the street who are homeless. and it's young people that are struggling with poverty, it's young people that are struggling with justice system. These people, if we take their safety as a priority, then all of us also, as human beings, we all grow together.
The group Make Poverty History released their list of proposals they'd like to see Winnipeg's next mayor tackle. They want 150 units of rent-geared-to-income housing every year for the next 10 years. They'd also like the city to increase the discount on low-income bus passes from 50% to 80%, and to expand 24-hour safe spaces.
Everybody should be able to at least afford their basic needs and not have to dip into that just for housing. So the housing, if we're going to move forward in a positive way, we need to lay the foundation down first and get the rent-geared-to-income housing.
It's that foundation that advocates like Mary Burton hope Winnipeg's next mayor and council will lay. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
6 out of the 11 Winnipeg mayoral candidates took part in a forum last night. The Jewish Federation of Winnipeg organized the event at the Bernie Theatre in Tuxedo. All the candidates present denounced anti-Semitism. Both Sean Loney and Jenny Montkaluk singled out Councillor Scott Gillingham for criticism. Robert Falcon-Willette took a shot at Glenn Murray.
We need a moral leader who will stand up for what is right in our city. That there are certain actions which are unacceptable in our city. And there are times as a leader you must say the truth and speak that truth. And so I speak it here today, and I hope people understand what it is I'm talking about, because it's certainly unacceptable for us to be here on this stage altogether.
Willette said after the forum that Murray lacks the moral authority to be mayor. A CBC News investigation published last week found Murray was forced to leave a prior job. According to former staff and communications obtained by CBC News, there were complaints about his management. Manitoba is once again widening the window for eligibility for monkeypox vaccination. Anyone who self-identifies as belonging to the gay, bisexual, or men who have sex with men community now qualifies for the vaccine if they have contracted a sexually transmitted infection in the past year. The previous window was limited to 6 months. Eligible people can also begin booking appointments for a second dose of the vaccine starting Thursday. The province has reported 1 confirmed case of monkeypox to date. A man who spent 27 consecutive months in solitary confinement at Stony Mountain Institution is suing the Attorney General of Canada and the prison staff who sent him into solitary. Ralph Jr. Moore finished his 4-year sentence about 15 years ago. During his time in solitary, he'd sometimes spend 24 hours a day alone without any contact. When he was allowed out, it was to shower, to exercise, or to make a phone call 3 times a day. In a statement of claim filed last month, he alleges his charter rights were violated. He says his treatment was cruel, inhumane, and degrading, leading to long-term psychological damage. Neither Correctional Services Canada nor the Office of the Attorney General responded to our requests for comment. And just a statement of defense has not been filed in that previous story. Hello, John.
Hi there, Janet.
We have an alert to tell people about.
Yeah, western parts of the province in an air quality statement. So what's happening is we've got some forest fire smoke in the area and a very stagnant air mass. There's just nowhere for the air to go. We need something to move it out. That's going to happen tomorrow. This is the area of concern, the shaded area up the western edge of the province, north of Brandon, up into the Dauphin area, through Swan River, up to the Paw. Speaking of the Paw, Brenda posted on my Facebook this afternoon that it was very, very smoky around the Paw, but still a very nice day. Temperatures are very warm, in the 20s in this area, but it'll take another 24 to maybe 36 hours for a cold front to kind of swing through tomorrow and kind of kick those winds around out of the north and kick that smoke out of the region. So hang in there for now. We did make it to 20 today. The highest number I saw on hour was 20.3. Now at 19, northeast winds at 7. It's a beautiful autumn day out there, and I really hope you had a chance to get outside and enjoy the sunshine. We had a little bit more cloud and even some showers off into northwestern Ontario. But here in the Winnipeg area, generally a sunny afternoon. We'll have a few clouds drifting through from the northwest as we head into the overnight period. Kind of looks like this on Futurecast. I'm going to draw a cold front in here as well because really it's connected to a system up to the north that will bring 2, maybe even 4 centimeters of snow from Thompson across into Island Lake, Shamattawa, God's Lake later on Wednesday. And it'll be sometime in the afternoon when this cold front kind of swings through, shifts the winds around to the north, gusting to 50 in the afternoon, 40 gusting 60 on Wednesday evening. And with that, there's a chance of a little shower pocket here and there, even on Thursday morning. And if we see a shower go through on Thursday morning at +1, yes, we could see the odd little snowflake in the sky. It'll just melt when it hits the ground. The general trend for Thursday is very cool. High pressure keeping us clear or clearing us out. Then on Friday, the high pressure is down to the south and east, and we get a shift in winds and we start to warm up again. So that's the general flow of things. In the upper atmosphere, we also see a change. This upper trough is going to sink in on Wednesday, and that brings the cooler air. And then it kind of moves back and forth, kind of in a chilly situation out where we are. Warmer to the west, and I do think that by Thanksgiving Monday, we'll start to see some of that warmer air drifting back over us. 8 degrees tonight, just a few clouds in the overnight period with light winds, and the same for tomorrow morning. A partly cloudy sky, but there's a lot more cloud around in the afternoon. A slight chance of a shower, windy, and that high of 16 is really going to be affected by the wind change, so it'll fall off in the afternoon. All the way to +1 on Thursday morning, a high of just 6 on Thursday. Rather chilly day. 10 on Friday after a very cool morning, and then 15 in the sunshine on Saturday.
Weather update is brought to you by Home Equip, your trusted local source for Pride Mobility scooters. From sales to rental and repair, our team is here to serve you.
Well, as you saw off the top of our newscast tonight, this is the National Day of Action for missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and gender-diverse people. A sacred fire is burning at the Forks tonight. A feast is being shared. And tonight, beginning at 7, a vigil will be held at the Forks. Supporters of the event say raising awareness on this day is a good thing, but it's not enough. CBC's Riley Lachuk spoke with one of the organizers just moments ago about the actions that are needed.
I'm here now with Sandra Delarond here at Odena Circle here at the Forks. I want to thank you for taking some time to chat with me. First, I want to ask you, what does this day mean to you?
Well, this day has been one that has really started as a result of the action of Indigenous women, their families, advocates for several years, and this day was called Sisters in Spirit in Manitoba. It is a formal day recognized by the legislature to bring honoring and awareness to missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and gender diverse people.
What has the mood been like here today?
The mood has been very good. I mean, it's been buoyant. People, are thankful that they have an opportunity to come together and remember the life that their loved ones brought to this world, and to share that with the community and other relatives.
I mean, such a public display with these posters and these butterflies with the name on them. What do these posters, I guess, represent to you?
Well, the posters are representative of the hard work of families and survivors that, really worked for many years to bring a national inquiry, to bring spotlight to the issues of missing and murdered women. And so really the 231 Calls to Justice is a accumulation of all their hard work to create change, to remember their loved ones, for the community and for Canadians in general.
So when people take time, I guess, to stop and sort of reflect and read these 231 calls to justice, what do you want them to take away from it?
Well, I think that we want people to, first of all, understand that the National Inquiry had a finding of genocide, which is accepted by Canada, and that when people look at the 231 calls to justice, that they can see themselves in those calls and to see that they can take action in creating change.
Has that change happened fast enough, in your opinion?
No, the change is happening, but it's glacial, especially for institutions and governments. The change has happened on a community level. People are coming together and asking the questions, and gatherings such as this is that opportunity to provide public education. There's a lot of young people here, so that is part of the public education.
What does it mean to see such a large number of young people here to, take this in?
Well, it's very heartwarming because we know that change happens when young people take action, and by coming down, like their parents or teachers or organizations that brought them here, it means that there is hope, that they will take these calls and create the change in the communities. A lot of them are young Indigenous girls, that they'll find a place of safety in these calls to justice.
There's one thing you want people to take away from this today and bring it into their lives for the rest of the year. What would that be?
Well, I can say for the last many years, it has been Indigenous women, family members and survivors that have taken this issue on. And I think it's really incumbent upon Canadian society to support the work, to be led by community in creating change. That it's not a time for Canada to sit back any longer and watch. They have to participate and be part of change.
Sandra, I wanted to thank you for taking some time. I really appreciate it today.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. You'll find individual stories there as well as our entire newscast. You can scroll through it to watch things a second time, or you can fast forward to get to John's forecast, whatever you like. It gives you control. National news is coming up next. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.